when we say P2P cycle, so let it start. Okay. So now today we will cover the procurement to pay cycle, the concept for P2P, what is it contains, and how system varies that. So first of all, we have to understand that when we are in the finance, that also called accounts payable. When we say accounts payable, which is the module name accounts payable, and there is, when you say you are a SCM guy, it is called procurement to pay or procurement and sourcing module. So here you can see the module called procurement and sourcing. Correct? So it makes difference? What is the difference between these two modules is all the activity related to the finance will be available in payable module, and all the activity which is related to the supply chain in addition to the accounts payable will be available in procurement and sourcing. For example, this purchase requisition, this is available in this procurement and sourcing, but this is not available in payable module. On the other hand, all purchase order, this screen is available in payable, as well as you can see the same into the procurement and sourcing. You can say all purchase orders. Both are leading to the same window, but the options is available here and there, which are common for both, but few options which are additional to that, which is available in procurement and sourcing. Is this clear that why they have given two modules? So when we say a supply chain guy, he should know the procurement and sourcing. When we say a finance guy, he should know the accounts payable. Okay.
Yeah. Rahul, you mean the procurement and sourcing has more um,
Options.
functionalities, yeah, available
Correct.
than the accounts payable. Okay.
Correct. Correct. Okay, and these are functionalities mostly related to the supply chain, or you can
Supply
say
chain.
procurement and sourcing activity. Now coming to this cycle, when we say purchase to pay, procure to pay. So the purchase cycle generally starts from the purchase order, and then last is the payment. But as a supply chain resource or supply chain consultant, there is an additional topic or additional point, that is a purchase requisition. So ideally, the purchase cycle start from the purchase requisition, then it is come to the purchase order, and then purchase receipt, then the purchase invoice, and then the purchase payment. So the cycle covers PR, PO, then receipt, then invoice, and then payment. So these complete transactions called procurement to pay. Okay. So when
Okay.
you say, okay, you explain the procurement to pay cycle or P2P cycle, you have to explain these cycles, these transactions. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Now let's start with the first activity, that is PR. But PR I will keep left to this SCM faculty. When he will join, he will explain you PR. We can start with the vendor master, like how to create vendor first. After creation of the vendor, you have to uh, create the purchase order for that vendor, and then we need to add the item, create the purchase order, confirm the purchase order, do the product receipt, and then invoice that receipt, and then payment. So I'm covering now this complete cycle one by one. Just try to grab the transaction or activity now. So let's start with the vendor master, creating the vendor master. So now when you say vendor master, now vendor master will be available in procurement to run sourcing as well, accounts payable as well. So this is a vendor. Now before going to that vendor, what we need, we should know that these options, like in any module, any module you can see, you will see these groups like journal entries, inquiries, this. So you will find some inquiries, reports, periodic tasks, everything. Some groups will be common for all the modules, like inquiry and report, periodic task, allocations. So like that, if you go to the procurement and sourcing, you will always find the inquiries. If you go to this inquiries and reports, periodic task, setup. So these are few groups which are common and available for all the modules. Okay. Then go to the procurement sourcing and go to the vendors and then all vendors. Now in all vendors with this company, there is no vendor available. So it is blank. So now let's start to create new vendor. So click on the new, and then in this there are two types of vendor, either it's an organization or it's a person. So let's click on the organization, give the organization name. So maybe this company is having a lot of vendors, so someone who supply the raw material, so give one name, maybe ABC. You can give a search name. Now vendor group. So now in this company, it's a blank company where there is no group. So what should be the vendor group? So I can right click on this arrow button and go to the view details. So it will take me to the vendor group screen. I am creating a new vendor here, new vendor group here. So there are groups called raw material. I give RM as a code. The description. Then I will maybe services administration. In another group, I just create service. Okay. I have created three groups: RM, service, and admin. Save this. Go back to your screen, that is vendor screen. Select this vendor group as a RM. So this is now a vendor group called RM, and this is minimum mandatory field which we need to provide when we create the new vendor. This number automatically comes with the vendor sequence given by the, and then save this and close this. So now in your vendor master you will find this one vendor is available. So first, how to create the vendor, you have to practice how to create the vendor. Then in vendor there are a lot of other options available, that vendor address is there, which we have provide the address of that vendor. Then contact details are there. Then there is a default dimensions are there. That all we can see in the detail one by one. So first you have to create small vendor with that vendor group. Before creating vendor, you create the vendor groups and create the vendor. Once you create the vendor, we can create the purchase order. So go to the screen, go to the accounts payable module. Even from the procurement module also you can come. Go to the purchase order. Go to the all purchase orders and create new purchase order. When you create new purchase order, you should have the vendor. To select the vendor, we have only one vendor now, and just say OK here. So now when you say a purchase order, so it will pick up the sequence, number sequence which we have given for the purchase order. So if you look here, the purchase order number is RENY001, because we have not changed anything for that sequence. So that's why it is taking default one. Then here again there are few fields like delivery date. If you want what delivery date you are expecting, you choose the delivery date. If there is any other location or delivery date, here is delivery date is same. Then you need to add a line here. If there is any items available in this environment, it will appear here. Now I don't think there is any item, so it will display a blank. So now I need to go to the product master and create one item. So for that, first of all, remove this. I'm just duplicating this tab. I will go to the product master. So why we are going with this, that you should know that what are the mandatory things should be available in your environment. To create the purchase order, you should have a vendor. You should have for vendor you need a vendor group. Now next is item. So you should have an item. Now item will also link with the item category, item dimensions, like that. So when we created the legal entity, what are the mandatory field or required chart of accounts, a structure, then the fiscal calendar. So these are dependencies. So while setup, you should know what are the dependencies.
Oh, so you mean if you don't put that information, either you can't save it or you can't do the transactions against it, right?
Correct, correct. You cannot create a purchase order if you don't have
Mhm.
item. Correct.
So when we created the vendor, do we
Mhm.
have there any mandatory fields which is required uh, or the information which is required to trans do the transaction against that vendor? For example, if we go for the item, if we create the item, we have to put, I think, warehouse, and we have
Site,
to put unit, right?
site and warehouse.
Yeah, site and warehouse. That's mandatory thing, because if you don't put that one, you can't do it won't list in the purchase order. You can't select that, right?
No, there are few more. Like site warehouse is one of the thing. That
Hmm.
depends on what is your configuration or what is your setup.
Okay.
It's all depends on your. That's what when we create a product master, we
Hmm.
have to choose that what is the important thing. In one of some organization, we don't need warehouse site something. So depends on your setup what you needed. That is called a product dimensions. But generally, site and warehouse is the standard and which is required for any item. Remaining are the optional. So in vendor master, you need a vendor group. That is again mandatory file. Without
Okay.
vendor group, you cannot save the vendor. So it is little bit slow. So I